Hello YouTube, this is J Coder back with another video, and today we are going to be going over an application. Well, we're actually going to be building an application that sends and receives API data. I know that when making mobile apps in general, it is very important to be able to implement a application that can talk to an API and receive its data from another server. And so we're gonna go over that and build that using Moshi and Retrofit, which are technologies that we're going to be using. It's also going to be in Compose. It's going to use Jetpack Compose to see the modern way where you can update the UI to display the data that has been retrieved from the API. And also we're going to be going over, we're going to be going over also view model. The view model will hold the data and handle, it's the middleman between the UI and the API call. So once the view model live data gets updated, then an observer will be called in the UI to update the lazy column in the Jetpack Compose. So that's going to be gone over. That's going to be including MVVM. So that is model, view model architecture. And that's a common architecture that Android development uses. So we're going to go ahead and be doing that. So I would like you guys to follow along, and I'm going to also post the source code to this app at the end. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and mute the music. And so now you should see on the screen where we're in our Android Studio. So I want you guys to go ahead and go to your Android Studio, and then we're going to choose an empty project. And so it's going to be that empty project with that square in it, and that's gonna have, some compose functionality in it already. We're not going to be using views, layout views, XML views for this one. We're going to be using Jetpack Compose. So we're going to go ahead and choose that as for our application. And we can name this something like can name this API example So yeah, we can name this API example with Compose. And so basically we can go ahead and hit finish on that. And then it should be opening up a new project for us. And let me check if you guys can see that in OBS. Okay, so let me go ahead and switch the window so that you all can see that. Alright, and so this is our new project window that we created from getting started with a new project. All right, so we have, some simple um, programming code here that displays a small greeting. It says it's Jetpack Compose that says "Hello Android," and so what we're going to do is we're going to modify this to make an API request, and then we're going to get that request and display it on the screen. And so right now the app looks like that. So this is what we're starting out with. So basically what we're actually you might not be able to see that. Let me go ahead and go to um our let me go ahead and switch that really quick. So on my screen, and then going to go to there. Okay, so this is what our application looks like so far, which just says hello Android. And so, all right, so let's go back to our project. And so for the first step, we got to set up our dependencies that we are going to need inside our Gradle file. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to go to our Gradle file in our application, or yeah, in our project files. And then inside our Gradle, we're going to go to the module Gradle file. There's two Gradle files. There's the project level one and the module level one. So we're going to go to the module level one, and we got to add a few dependencies to make sure everything will be good to go for our for what we're doing. So let me see here. So we have, these implementations here, and we already have a lot of the compose ones that we need. And these kind of ones, we're not going to be doing like testing today. So these kind of ones are not really that important for our purposes today. So those are kind of like, just for the testing suite. And so we're going to add some implementation dependencies here. So let's see. So the dependencies that we need to add here is, first of all, we're going to be using Moshi and Retrofit. So I'm going to go ahead and place those in the project. So, all right, and I'm gonna just, okay. So we placed, this one is the dependency for the Moshi. So they want this syntax. So what Moshi and Retrofit are required libraries for calling the data from the API and parsing the JSON data that we retrieve from the API. So mostly Retrofit is responsible for the calling and receiving the response. Moshi is responsible for mostly for parsing the JSON requests so that we can extract the different variables from the JSON that we receive from the API, which will be like title, name, URL, things like that. And it will work in conjunction with our data class. And so, all right. So we have that. And so I'm also just making sure that we have the ones that we need here. Let me see. So we're also actually, I think, yeah, we're good to go thus far. We'll go ahead and sync that. Alright, so we are syncing the project. Just make sure it still works after we add the Moshi and the retrofit to our project. Okay. And alright, perfect. Alright, now we're going to be going off of the MVVM structure. So that's model, view, model. And so when we do that, usually we like to split up our packages into the appropriate architecture. So what I'm going to do here is, so the appropriate architecture for this would be, let's see, go to our, okay, so I'm going to make a folder inside our package. I'm going to make a new package. And the new package is going to be called model. Alright, so that's going to be our new package. Name model. And then I'm going to also do a package called network. So I'm going to do a new package. And this one's going to be called network. And all right. So we have model and we have network. Just 1 second. I want to just make sure it's correct here. So Okay, so I'm going to make one called model network, and then I'm going to make one called view model, and then also one called views. So let me go ahead and do that. So we're going to make a new package, and this package will be called view model. Package, new package, view model. And then there's another one that is called views. So views is going to be where we're going to have our UI. And I'm going to leave this as is the UI theme. So I'm going to add a new one. So we have these multiple packages to fit the MVVM style. So now this one's going to be views. Okay, so we have the model network view model view. So model view model. And so since we have these things, I'm going to go ahead and drag our main activity into the views, because that one is going to be our UI. So, different composables you can put in views that you are going to display in your UI. And so, all right, let's set up our retrofit and Moshi so that we can make an API call from an API. And also, let me just check really quick here. So we have the Moshi and the Moshi. I'm going to go ahead and let's go back to our implementation. And then inside our implementation, let's go ahead and add these ones for our network call, for our our retrofit and Moshi. And so just to be safe there, so these four should be the four dependencies that we need to make the API request with retrofit and Moshi. All right, and now, so we have something called the model, and in the model we like to put the structure of our data. So we're gonna make a new data class to be structured the way that this will be structured according to the response that we're going to get from the API. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new Kotlin class, and this one is going to be called post. And this one's going to be a data class. Now, since I kind of already know the structure, I'm going to go ahead and just put it here. However, for those of you who do not know the structure of the API that you will be calling, you need to get a response. Like you could use Postman, or sometimes the browser directly enter in the URL of your API call, and you'll see the JSON data. And then inside the JSON data, you can look at how the JSON is structured, such as ours is going to be structured like this. It's going to have a title, it's going to have a body, it's going to have a user ID and an ID. And so you use good common practice is to make a data class that will hold this data that you will retrieve from that JSON. So basically, there's also a plugin that you can use. Let me see if I can show you guys that really quick for the regarding the plugin. So let's see, Android Studio settings, parents, plugins. Okay, so let me check on my OBS if you guys. Okay, let me go ahead and switch the window so that you guys can be able to see that. So let me go ahead and go here. Oh, oops. I'm going to go ahead and go here, and then I'm going to go ahead and switch the window to our settings. Okay, so basically you're going to go to your Android Studio menu. Then you're going to go to settings, and then you're going to go to plugins, right? And then once you go to plugins, search for JSON to Kotlin class, and you can go ahead and enable that, or go ahead and install that to your Android Studio, which I already have it installed. So now, like, let's say, let me go ahead and switch the window back. So let's say that you want to make a data class based on the JSON response that you will be getting on your from your API. You can go inside your Android Studio. There should be, let's see, when you right click, let's see, right click, I'm gonna, probably for that, I'm gonna have to change my window. Let's see, new, okay, so let's say, all right, actually, I'll show you guys an example real quick. Hold on, just give me one moment. Let me get the example for you guys really quick. So I'm going to be taking. So for the API we're going to be calling today, we're going to be calling JSON placeholder typecode.com. It's a free sample data API that can be called. So like, for instance, it's going to be this URL that we're going to be calling to get our JSON data. That's the base URL. And then what is going to be our endpoint? The endpoint is going to be posts. So this is our endpoint, and this is our base URL. And let me see if you guys are seeing that. Okay, now for this, what we can do, since this is a simple example, we don't really need Postman to do this. So just give me one moment, and I'm going to show you guys an example of what I'm talking about with the JSON. So let me go ahead and turn on my screen. So let me go ahead and go to here, and then let me go ahead and display capture. Alright, so now what we can do is, so this right here is our URL, right, for our JSON. So here I'm going to go ahead and post that into the browser, and then we're making a request for the post data, and when we make that request, it returns to us this data here in the JSON, right? And so if you would notice inside my post class, which I spelled wrong, let me go ahead and refactor that, rename that to post, and then refactor. Okay, so alright, so we got, this here. So if you notice, the data class I created has user ID, title, body, which matches up with each one of these, okay? And so basically, if you are working with a new API, you can copy the JSON that you see here, or you can manually do this, but with the plugin I just loaded in Android Studio, you can go ahead and right click, and then once you right click, you can go to new, and then you should see this new option that says Kotlin data class file from JSON. You click that, and then you post that JSON code inside your inside that window, and then like you can name this a class name such as response data, and then you can say generate, and then boom, it goes and generates the JSON, which the JSON is an array. It's a big array with response data item, and the response data item is the post. So that's how you can automatically generate the data from your response, the data classes from your response. so that you don't necessarily have to do it manually, which since this is a simple example, I'm going ahead and doing it manually here. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these guys. That was just for demonstrational purposes to kind of, so you guys can understand what I was talking about. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and delete these two guys. Let's see. Delete. Delete. Okay, so we have our post here with the data I showed you that we got from this URL, which is going to be our response data we're going to be displaying in their app. I'm going to go ahead and switch the window again back. So in our OBS, I'm going to go ahead and go to the screen. Then I'm going to go ahead and go by window. And then it's going to be our API example here. Alright, perfect. Now we have our post data class. And what else do we need? So we're going to go ahead and go to our network and set up the things that we need. So inside our network, we're going to make a thing called API service. So in our network, it's going to be a new Kotlin file. And this Kotlin file will be an interface. And in this interface is where we will go ahead and set up our we're going to have a method that's called get posts, and this is where the response will be stored. So inside our API service, we're going to do this code. So this will be the data post that we just created. The data class post that we just created. And it says get post. So here, remember how we said that this is our endpoint and this is our base URL. So right here inside this get annotation, you will put posts, and it will be depending on what your API says, but we're calling a get a get method on our actual JSON. So there's get, post, put, delete, things like that. But right now we're doing a simple get, where get gets the information. Post, we usually, post usually modifies, is like a write to the API. Get is like a read. So we are reading from the API, and this part is called the endpoint. So, when we use retrofit, we need to put the import inside the get annotation. Alright, and now we're going to make another thing called a retrofit instance. And this retrofit instance is going to be an object. and it's going to be retrofit instance. Okay, so this is in our network package. And so our retrofit instance, we're going to, first of all, we're going to have the base URL as a variable. Let me see. Okay, great. You guys still can see. Alright, so inside our retrofit object, we're going to have the base URL. Remember, do not put. Let me see. Let me get this. Alright, so basically, remember to don't include the post here or you're going to get an error. This is going to be the base URL with, so the base URL is to the .com usually, and then after that will be usually be the endpoint, the endpoints. And so yeah, remember to put the base URL here, which is this JSON placeholder, which is our sample data. It's a public website that returns sample data, API data. And so, alright, so now we need a variable called, that we're going to call Moshi, and it's going to build, or it's going to take in the, I'll just show you here. So this variable is called Moshi. It's going to, this is how we set it up. It's our Moshi.builder and Kotlin JSON adapter factory. So this stuff is necessary to parse our response data appropriately. And then we're going to do another variable called retrofit, and this is pretty much a lot of boilerplate setup code that we need in order to successfully call the API. So this is retrofit builder, and then add converter factory, and then .create, and we pass in our Moshi there, and we also pass in our base URL there. And now I'm going to make another object here, and this is also pretty much boilerplate type code, where I'm going to make another object here, and you can name this anything, but this is pretty much, I named it JSH, pretty much loosely off of JSON placeholder, which you can name anything you want, but I named it JSH API is our object. And so what this is going to do is going to hold a variable called get retrofit service, and then have this retrofit.create, and then API service. So this is also necessary in order to set up retrofit. All right. we need an extra person, another bracket to match that up. So now we have our retrofit instance here. And now we will need our view model, which I'm going to name this the post view model. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the view model package. And then in the view model package, we're going to go to new. And then we're going to go to Kotlin class. Going to name this class post view model. So now we have the post view model inside our view model package. And then we are going to need our live data. So this view model class will keep track of the data retrieved from the API. And the reason why we have a view model so that the UI will not have to do this job of keeping track of the data. The view model's job is to keep track of the data, and then whenever the data is updated, the UI will be observing the live data that the view model keeps track of. So this will be posts, immutable live data, a list of posts, and then in order for this to be accessed outside of the class, we're going to go ahead and do this. So this can be accessed outside the class and within the class. So now I also like to log. We're going to be logging the output. So we're going to be logging this response. So I like to do log t here. So if you type log t, it will populate this tag that we can use for our logging. And since this is within the class, we have to delete this constant. Like for instance, if I had it outside the class, then I could still have that constant. But it's whatever preference that you like. So I'm going to have it inside the class, so can't have the constant. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to make a new method called fetch posts. And of course, this is going to be responsible for making the actual API call and using the setup that we set up with retrofit emoji. So we're gonna have this fetch post from inside the view model, and then so basically when you fetch posts, you have to do a quarantine scope. I'm sorry, not quarantine, a coroutine scope where you call the view model scope.launch. And in this method is where we're going to have our code to actually call the view. Our code to actually fetch the post. So, alright. And so we have our view model scope there. And then here, we actually probably need, let me see, the Android X lifecycle. So let me see. Just one moment. So for this, let me see. For the view model, okay. So side. We might need this guy. So just give me 1 second. I'm getting the dependency here. So let me see. So let's go back to our Gradle. Then inside our Gradle, we have these. Then this is a compose view model lifecycle. If I go ahead and sync now. And go ahead and for our view model scope, let me see. It's probably another one. So for this view model scope, life cycle, view model dot launch. Alright. So for that guy, let me see here. So let me see, just 1 second. So do we have the life cycle inside our module? We have the life cycle runtime, okay, and life cycle runtime, okay, have that too. All right. So the view model scope actually, let's see here. So none of the following candidates are applicable because of receiver mismatch. Okay. So in here, the view model, we have, okay, that's correct. Alright, so inside the view model scope.launch, we're gonna need a try catch. So try, and then catch, and then corn. Jeez. Cycle models. All right. Let me see something here. Yeah. Model. Yeah. Model. Scope. Model scope. Dot. Launch. Let me just get the dependency for that really quick. Just give me one moment. Presentation. Let me try this guy. Okay. Sync now. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to actually go ahead and call it a day for now in this project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and investigate the view model scope here, and then on the next live stream, I'll have that ready for you guys as we continue to build our application that will read from the API. But make sure you stay tuned and subscribe to the channel to see the next part when I release it. And so this is going to be several parts. Well, this will be multiple parts. So go ahead and stay tuned for the next video. And I'm going to say goodbye to you all for now. And as always, stay coding.